to go ahead and get started. I want to introduce to you the first speaker today. This is Alex Corey. Alex is a partner here at Balch & Bingham. He's actually in their Atlanta office. Alex is co-chair of the firm's Electronic Discovery and Data Management Group. His practice focuses on commercial litigation, including contract disputes and business torts. He has been a panelist for the Atlanta ESI Roundtable for 2 years, presenting on the rules and panel discussion and e-discovery case management 101. Today, Alex is going to speak to us about data privacy and security.
We'll see how that works. Got it. All right, good morning. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Before I get started, I just want to thank Melissa and ESI Roundtable. This is a great organization. Like she said, I've been involved with it for 2 years in Atlanta, and it's really unique. I think of it as a self-help group. It's practitioners in a market working together, collaborating to get their hands around e-discovery, and as we'll talk about today, data security, the problems in this area. And it's unique because it's not a sales environment. It is a collaborative effort. In actual judges, we've got Judge Waxy here today, which we're honored to have him, practitioners and paralegals who play an important part of the e-discovery process. So it really is a great learning opportunity. I encourage everybody to be involved with ESI Roundtable if you can. I've definitely gotten a lot out of it. Just being able to pick up the phone and call other Roundtable members and say, how do you deal with this? I've learned a lot. That may be the most valuable aspect of it. So today I'm going to be talking about data security, and that's sort of the new buzzword. If you follow this industry at all, we kind of tend to lean towards buzzwords. And predictive coding was the big one the last couple of years. Well, now it's data security. I think there's a couple of reasons for that. I think largely you can trace it back to the big Target data breach in the holiday season of last year. That got the media's attention on what has been that problem for a long time, but now every single breach that occurs seems like it's in the news. And as a result, from a law firm perspective, that means a lot of our clients have already been tuned in, but the ones who weren't now are. And so this isn't a convenience of e-discovery or a convenience of technology. This is a real need that our clients have, that in our industry where we deal with a lot of confidential data that we have. So I'm going to start, if this thing works. Well, how about if I do that? There we go. All right. So CLE 101, I'm supposed to give you a roadmap. Here it is. I'm going to give you some interesting and scary facts to get your attention. It's the first thing in the morning. Hopefully caffeine will help with that. A little bit of time on educational stuff. That's the boring stuff. We won't spend too much time on that. And then some practical advice. I think that's really the value of these things, so we'll do that. So information security and the practice of law. Everybody knows law firms deal in confidential information, our clients' confidential information. It is, in some ways, it's an essential part of our practice and has always been. We have our own privilege to protect confidential communications with our clients. But I think lawyers have a blinder on with regards to our clients' data, because when we get data from the clients, we're thinking of it in terms of the legal problem that we're hired to solve. So when we get data, we're saying, okay, is it relevant? Is it responsive? Is it hurtful or harmful to our case? And we're not thinking, how much money did the client spend to develop this information? What's the risk to the client if this information gets out? What is the value of this data to somebody on the outside, a third party, a bad actor? We don't normally think that way. And yet, as law firms and the law practice in general moves and embraces technology and getting the benefits of that technology, being able to mobily access documents, and there's some great benefits, but if we're going to do that, we've got to take the blinders off, because now we are dealing with a commodity of the client. It's not much different from dealing with their cash. We've got lots of protections on dealing with client money. We have trust accounts and rules and regulations related to that. But the data is just as valuable, sometimes more valuable. So we've got to take the blinders off. Now, espionage and corporate espionage and identity theft are not new problems. They've been around for a long time. What's different are the tools. And the conveniences that we seek through technology have made those types of crimes easier, and so we have to respond. But I wanted to go back and try to show that this issue sort of predates the technology age, and I went back to 1994 because that was one that stuck in my mind, and to me it seemed too recent, but I was dealing with Howie Tang, who was on our e-discovery team. It was his birthday yesterday. I think he's 18 this year. He didn't even remember the tobacco litigation from the 90s, but there was a great example of a data breach in that case. There was a paralegal working for a Kentucky law firm who was representing one of the big tobacco companies and was doing document review, privileged document review. Well, that paralegal saw documents that indicated that the tobacco industry was aware that nicotine was addictive, and they had known it going back to 1963. And that paralegal had a trench coat. He cut a slit in the lining of his coat and was sneaking those documents out of the law firm. And miraculously, they ended up in the hands of a plaintiff's attorney, and that led, in large part, to a $200 billion settlement. So it's a big, big deal. Now, that paralegal ended up with a house on the coast in Mississippi, 2 cars, a boat, and a $3,000 a month job that he never had to show up for. That wasn't payment. It was just the plaintiff attorney felt like he wanted to help this guy out. So it is a problem, and I'm not picking on paralegals, by the way. This could have been anybody. There's lots of attorneys who probably wouldn't mind a beach house in Mississippi. So it is a problem that's affected law firms for a long time. This thing's not working, so let's do this. All right. So it's a whole problem. The technology is what's new. It's easier. Okay? We know since 2011 at least 80 law firms have been hacked. And I say at least, I really want to stress at least, because frankly most law firms don't know if they've been hacked. They've got no way to know. And the ones who do know, a very small percentage of those actually report it, and for obvious reasons. So we know that law firms are a target. And there's one really good example from 2011. It were Canadian law firms that were dealing on a $40 billion acquisition deal. So not litigation, not discovery, but they had their clients' confidential information. A Chinese state-owned company was very interested in the terms of that deal, and lo and behold, those law firms were hacked for insider information. In 2012, the FBI called together the largest law firms in New York City and told them, look, we know you guys are going to be this target of attacks. You need to be prepared. Law firms are considered to be the weak link in the data security chain. Well, a weak link, not the only one. And the target breach is a good example of that. What's happening is that as our clients, the corporations that are controlling the sensitive data are investing a lot of money and a lot of effort and time into securing it. But every chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Each of those corporations has many vendors, including law firms. And if any of those links in the chain are weak, it doesn't matter how much the corporation has spent. The Target breach occurred not because Target's security was insufficient. Well, you can argue that it was, but it was because of a vendor that they used. It was actually their HVAC vendor who had access to a limited portion of their network. One of the technicians at the HVAC vendor fell subject to a phishing email, basically gave over his access information to the hackers. They were able to get into past Target security, and once they got inside the system, they were able to install malware and to find out how to get into sensitive data. So any weak link in the chain can undo an entire regimen of security. I kind of think of it as the data thieves are like lions watching a big herd on the Serengeti, and they're looking for the weak, the young, and the old because those are the easy targets. And fortunately, as corporations beef up their security, the weak, young, and old become all the vendors, the law firms, the HVACs, really any of the vendors. And so you're starting to see a lot of vendor audits from the corporations, and rightfully so. And that trickles down to the law firms. We've started doing vendor audits on our side as well to make sure that our suppliers are meeting the security standards. I included the last bullet point because this one's interesting. This is a slight change. 22 British law firms are being investigated for hiring hackers to get information. Now, there's some debate. I don't think it's been determined that they knew that these people were hackers. But if they were, that's an interesting shift to be aware of. If law firms are willing to obtain information from hackers, it really is kind of a frightening thought in the practice of law. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide, but this is supposed to show data breaches increasing every year. You can see it's kind of staggered. I want to point out the last column, though, which is 2014, because that's halfway through the year, and it's already up to 2011 totals. Now, all of these numbers I think are very unreliable because data breaches are grossly underreported. But you can see that it looks like 2011, 12, 13, and then 14 stays on track. It'll be at least as higher than 13. So this is a problem that we're dealing with more and more. All right. I think what I see a lot in terms of dealing with the security problem is people tend to think it's focused on one or two industries. The financial services industry jumps out at you. With Target, the retail industry jumps out at you. So Target, Michaels, Neiman Marcus, those are fairly recent ones that are in people's minds. Probably the biggest targets are the financial services.